Hi, friends. Welcome to today's episode of We Are Marketing Happy, a healthcare marketing podcast. My name is Jenny Bristow. I am the CEO and founder at Hedy Hopp. We're a full service, fully healthcare marketing agency, and we are the proud producers of this weekly podcast. I am so excited today to have Drew Hardesty with me. He is the CEO and founder at Wonder Boy Media, which is a full service video production company based out of Owensboro, Kentucky. Welcome, Drew.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we actually met at Shishmit a couple of weeks ago. We were in what we like to call the quirky corner
That's
in
right, the
the
quirky
booth
corner.
area. But we had so much fun talking about all things content generation for providers. And so I invited you on the podcast today to talk about one specific area of topic that we dug into quite a bit, which is the emergence of AI in both photo and video editing. Mark Brandes, who is the director of technology and analytics at Hedy Hopp, he and I did a masterclass at Shishmit about AI and the immediate applications that marketers can use in their day-to-day workflows to improve efficiencies, consider things from different perspectives, et cetera. And you and I had a really great conversation about how that applies to video and imagery. So to kick the show off today, I think what I'd love to do is have you really explain the difference to listeners about AI art generation versus AI image and video editing and what we're going to focus on today.
Okay, absolutely. So when it comes to like art generation, these tools like Dolly, I can't think of that. Dolly's the one I use the most, but
Mhm.
Canva does it as well. It's really using a text prompt, but being fairly specific and concise with that, and having these machines just generate like sometimes perfect art, sometimes it's a little off, but for the most part, it does a really good job. So art generation is based off of text prompts, whereas AI and when it comes to editing is based off of something that's already been created, a video that's already been shot, an image that's already been shot or captured, and then using that and some of the surrounding aspects of the image to generative fill or expand or all these things that we're starting to hear more and more about.
Yeah, excellent. That is a really great example. And during the class, some of the folks that were participants, we had a fun workshop area, and one of the people actually said, do a dog looking at a laptop, like this really quirky prompt, right? And it's really cool to see what AI can do as far as creating that imagery through the lens of art, but it is rarely applicable in our day-to-day lives as marketers in the healthcare space. So I'm excited to focus more on the AI through the lens of editing and process improvement. So let's start first talking specifically about photos. I'm going to chat about photos first, then I'm going to chat about video second. So
Okay.
talk to me a little bit about marketers when they're thinking about photography or any sort of static image assets, what sort of applications there are for AI to improve their workflows or editing processes.
Yeah, so we exclusively use the Adobe suite. So we've got, Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects, all these, famous programs people have heard of. Those can have a little bit of a learning curve. And so for those marketers out there who don't have that experience or don't have that time to learn these programs, Canva does a great job with it as well. So we've taken numerous times, I've taken images into Canva. Their background remover is really good. Their duotone tool, all these different things that you can edit an image that's already been shot. Maybe it's a headshot of a physician, but it was kind of a weird background. You want to take that out and put them in front of the hospital. So, Canva does a really good job of removing backgrounds and things like that. Where we would get more into kind of the professional realm would be in Adobe. And the AI in Adobe is just taking leaps and bounds like every day. It blows me away how good it is. Their denoiser, we've got a camera that, will shoot some pretty good megapixels, but it typically has some noise. Their AI denoiser is unreal. Their generative fill, if there's, a space that you want to, put something in, like hey, put a tree here next to this person, it does a really good job of that. We've used it for expand, generative expand. So if you needed just a little more headroom on a shot, or if you needed a little more of a wall in the background, their generative fill and generative expand is just light years ahead of things most people would have access to.
That is a great summary. I was reading an article last week a little bit about Adobe's AI functionality, and the person said, I tried to create a list of all the things it doesn't do, and I literally couldn't come up with anything because it's
It's
expanded so much
it's
in the last
unreal.
couple of years.
Yep.
That's really exciting. So, one of the examples that I hear over, and you spoke on it, but is marketers that have to get a physician's headshot for the directory, and they used to drive or send a photographer that they hired, a contract or on staff, 4 hours out to a rural clinic to get a headshot of that physician. And it was a whole day's contractor's expense. And now, like you said, you can literally take just a photo of them that they submit and then generate it into a standardized headshot imagery. So I think, just like you said, whenever I'm thinking about ways that marketers can be smart about it, it's not so much about getting like super creative and doing fancy art. It's more about how can I clean up processes,
Right.
reduce the noise or the budget,
Yep.
unnecessary budget of travel and whatnot, just to be smarter with my budget allocation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's where AI is really well used is in the workflow process. So if you have an image of a doctor already and you just want to polish it up, make it look more professional, there's apps out there that will take just the face and then put them on this, clean looking, professional looking headshot. It's more of a workflow thing, I think, than getting too creative. Right now, the creative side of it is a little wonky, but workflow is where it really is powerful.
I love that. Let's transition over to video because I think we're going to talk about the exact same thing on video,
Yep.
right? It's not about generative creating it from scratch. It's more about being smarter with your workflow. So, what are some ways that folks like yourself, organization, or marketers within organizations that focus on video editing, what are some ways they can look at integrating AI into their video editing processes?
The biggest thing right now, at least in our world where we are here in Owensboro, we're starting video podcast studios. I'm actually in one now. And so those podcasts, video podcasts could be hour and a half. It could go Joe Rogan and be 3 or 4 hours long. And where AI really helps there is these plugins that Adobe has that will take multi-camera angles and edit them in minutes. And just the amount of time that would save me as an editor from basically having to rewatch the whole video that I already saw in live in person, taking that and editing it within minutes is just a huge time saver. And I think that's where, as when it comes to video, AI is really helping is with time saving, just helping that workflow speed it up, get projects out the door faster and accurate, and it does a really good job.
Yeah. So thinking specifically about this podcast, for example, thinking about like removing pauses, removing ums and other filler words, right? I think it's
Absolutely.
really important to clarify that there's nothing creative being done with this editing with AI, right? That's where human touch is still so important. So for a podcast, it's not as big of a deal because we do a straight shoot here. But if you're doing, for example, a commercial video, for your organization, that's not something that AI can edit for you, right? Like that
Right.
still takes, a person like yourself or a member of your team to be creative.
Right. Yeah. And I mentioned that we talked, earlier about some posting I had made on LinkedIn, Instagram, and it's that human touch. That was,
Yeah.
what I liked about that post is that it's so important, especially, in healthcare marketing when we're trying to focus on storytelling and the human condition. It takes that human touch to really make something creative and to tug on heartstrings and to connect with people. Whereas AI isn't quite there yet. It's still, I'm not out of a job yet, put it that way. I'm not worried about my job. AI is not taking over my job. There's still a place for that human touch.
I think it's just probably letting you focus on the more fun parts of your job.
Absolutely. Yeah. And taking over the tedious work and
Yeah.
allowing us to be a little more creative. Yeah.
I love it. So, if I were an in-house marketer and I were thinking about doing either a video or a image job of some kind with an outsourced organization, what are some questions or things I should ask them to understand if they're using AI effectively? Because I would think that probably would mean that from a budget and timing perspective, they're likely going to be a better partner.
Absolutely. I mean, OpenAI is free and,
Mhm.
you can use Dolly, ChatGPT. I was doing it earlier. I was trying to come up with some tattoo designs of all things, and it just spit out, 10 designs right then and there. So that's completely free. Most, I would say, marketers probably have a Canva subscription. And if you have the pro version, then, you have their AI tools as well that are a part of that. Adobe, again, we talked about that can get a little more expensive depending on, the learning curve, how much you know about it. But once you have access to those programs, it's completely free. I think it really just goes back to creativity. When to use something that's free and when to partner with someone is when you need to be creative. And AI is going to kind of get you halfway there, but that human touch is what's really going to, set it off. So if you need to be, spitting out graphics on brand for social media posts, I think AI is great for that. They're going to get the tone right. As long as you're prompting well, they'll get the tone, the colors, the brand, all the things right. But when you need to do something really creative and outside of the box, you know, partnering with someone, getting that human touch would really help.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And one last disclaimer as the self proclaimed queen of privacy, I have to remind everyone to not upload anything into any of these AI platforms that is considered private. So if you're not willing to put it on a billboard outside of your office for your competitors to see or for the general public to see, do not upload it. That includes anything specific to patients, any sort of like financials or positioning information about your organization. You just got to be really smart about that. So
Yeah, that's a good disclaimer.
Absolutely. Well, Drew, thank you so much for being on. For our listeners, Drew's organization, we're huge fans of Wonderboy and all of the work that they've done. I'm going to include a link to his LinkedIn in the show notes. So if you'd like to reach out to him to chat more about his work or his use of AI in this space, I'm sure he'd be happy to chat.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of We Are Marketing Happy. Please, as my kids would say, like and subscribe and share us with a colleague who may appreciate this content. And we will see you on a future episode.